Alrighty, welcome back to Planning in Practice. We have an episode today where I actually have had a client experience that I've gone through recently that I'm here to bring John in to go over some options or some things that he would have done differently to help avoid this situation. John Hannon here is a well sought after attorney here in Orange County, and we're very privileged to have him here today. Thank you, John.
Well, thanks, Grant, for having me.
Of course. So I had a situation with a client recently. So we had a husband and a wife, and both had kids from a previous marriage. They got married later in life. They did not have kids together. They each had individual accounts and trusts. But what had happened was when one of the spouses go, the money from that trust, and in this case, it was the husband that went first. So the money was supposed to go into a trust to take care of her. When the wife passed, whatever was remaining was to go to his biological children. But what had happened was he had passed, the money went to the wife. The wife lived in Oregon, the kids lived in Texas, and her kids were close. So she said, no, thank you, and then cut his biological kids out.
Okay.
And then everything went to her kids. And then his biological kids came to me saying, our dad's passed. The wife has now passed. Where's the money that our father left us?
Yeah.
And I had to tell them, I am so sorry, there is nothing. And it was a very rough and difficult conversation. Unfortunately, and in that instance, I expect nothing less, but I was cast as the bad guy. Mm-hmm. What do you mean there's no money? Yeah. Where did it go? Well, you have to go back and look at the trust and how things were done. So in that scenario, you're the husband.
Thoughts,
yeah. What would you have done in the beginning?
Yeah, all sorts of thoughts on that. And a lot of it's on the planning side, right? Mm-hmm. So when people set up a trust, all right, and there's spouses there, it's really important what's the structure of that trust. And so, I like to say that, estate planning can't fix your family dynamics, but sure can destroy them. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can structure this thing in a way that it creates the incentives later down in the line. Mm-hmm. They're not aligned, and it's going to destroy the family. Yeah. Right? So blended families are especially important with this. So whether that is the one spouse comes in the marriage with a lot of assets, so they're going to do kind of separate property planning, or whether you have a joint trust with husband and wife. Either way, it's thinking about the timing of things when one spouse passes away. So when the first spouse passes away, you can set up that trust to have different types of structures. So one structure that people say is easy and simple is what I call an A-type trust structure. So in an A-type trust structure, you have a joint revocable trust, husband and wife put it together, and then after the death of the first spouse, everything just stays in trust. Mm-hmm. Everything stays revocable. Now, that's really nice for tax planning because at the second death, you're going to get a step-up in basis for income tax purposes. Yeah. So at the first death, you got a step-up in basis, no capital gains. Second death, you get a step-up in basis, no capital gains. That's nice.
Yeah.
But the problem is that after the first spouse passes away, that surviving spouse can disinherit everybody.
Which is what happened in our situation.
Right? And so that might not be the best if you have a blended family scenario. I'm usually cautioning against that. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just, okay, we really like each other and, we both think of each other's children as our own. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that in the moment, yes. But what happens is after the first death, you've now tempted the surviving spouse to potentially change the plan.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe after the death of the first spouse, surviving spouse's children say, we really need the money more than them.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just creating this temptation to say, well, I do have a revocable trust. That surviving spouse's estate planning attorney will say, this is revocable. You can fully amend it.
It's your money. You can do whatever you want.
Right? And so you're creating that. So an alternative to that, would be creating trusts where it splits, mm-hmm. right? Splits into a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. And the point of the irrevocable trust a little bit of tax planning on that.
Sure.
If you have a very, very large estate, you may be concerned about estate taxes. So certain types of irrevocable trusts, like a bypass trust or a credit shelter trust, those can be sheltered from future estate tax, future death tax. But for people who are under 20 million, that may not be a concern. So the concern is more, capital gains and avoiding that. So maybe you have what's called a Q-tip trust or something like that. But for purpose of family dynamics, you're not concerned as much about the tax implications of those trusts. You're more concerned of the fact that it is an irrevocable trust.
Sure.
And that the surviving spouse, because it's irrevocable, can't revoke it. Now, even if you have an irrevocable trust, there's all sorts of options with that. You can create an irrevocable trust that has what's called a general power of appointment or a limited power of appointment. A power of appointment basically says that a certain individual, usually the surviving spouse, can change the distribution provisions of this irrevocable trust at death.
Okay.
If it's at death, it's called testamentary. If it's during life, it's called a lifetime power of appointment. Either way, the power of appointment says the surviving spouse can take these assets, do something different with them than what it already says. Now, functionally, doesn't that kind of just sound like a revocable trust, right?
Yeah.
So in your scenario, maybe there was a split into an irrevocable trust, but because the powers were so broad, there was a power of appointment to allow the surviving spouse to disinherit. So it functions kind of as like a revocable.
Gotcha.
And those, if you want to put a power of appointment in there, be very specific about how broad or narrow it is, right? And that can make all the difference. You can have a very narrow one that says you can only exercise this power in favor of the deceased spouse, the first spouse's descendants. Okay, so change it around, but you can't disinherit them.
Right.
Or it can be super broad, any person.
Yeah.
Right? Or only children of either of our marriages. Well, then you can disinherit one side.
Sure,
and all that. Or to charities, something like that. So the scope of that power appointment, super important. And a lot of times it's just kind of forgotten because usually a power appointment is there for tax purposes, but it does have some planning, some family dynamic purposes as well. So the scope of that is really important. And then, who is the trustee of that irrevocable trust? Super important. Yeah. Because if the surviving spouse is the trustee of that irrevocable trust, which is often the case, you've created an awkward dynamic because now that surviving spouse is the current beneficiary, and the remainder beneficiaries could be their stepchildren. Yeah. And you now have a situation where that current beneficiary spouse, they want all the income. Give me distributions. Pull it all out. Whereas the remainder is saying, no, preserve principal. Invest for growth. And you could even have a scenario where it says income to surviving spouse, right? Just income. Well, guess how they're gonna come to you and say, Grant, I need you to maximize income on this thing. Like I don't care about long-term growth. I just want to maximize the income. And the remainder beneficiaries are going to say, I don't like that. Yeah. Right? So certain things you can do there, lots of bells and whistles. You can do one, you can say, you can put a provision. It is the intention of the settlors that the income beneficiary shall be favored over the remainder beneficiaries. Yeah. So it's very clear, hey, you're going to look at the needs of that income beneficiary, and that's how you're going to direct investments. Yes. You would love that provision, Grant, because you're not fighting over, do I have to think about the needs of the remainder beneficiaries or the current beneficiary? Because a trustee has a duty of impartiality, treat all the beneficiaries equally. Yeah, right. Absolutely. So you put the beneficiary in an awkward spot, especially if they are also the beneficiary. If they're the trustee and beneficiary, that's a tough dynamic there. Something you can do is you can put a third party in there. Have a third party trustee. And so that way it's not the surviving spouse beneficiary also being their own trustee. That can help a lot. But if you don't have a provision saying, well, how are we supposed to direct investments? Who am I supposed to favor, if anybody? You put them in a hard spot. They're going to get letters. They're going to get communications. Hey, I need you to invest differently. Hey, that distribution's unfair. You might have people looking over their shoulder. Yeah. So a way to kind of make some of those issues go away is you can design that irrevocable trust for the surviving spouse. You can design it with distributions that are non-discretionary. You say you get a certain dollar amount every single year, period. No one can fight over a certain dollar amount.
No.
You can do a unit trust. You can do a trust where it says 5% of the principal balance, whatever it is, on an annual basis, that goes out. And that can be from income, that can be from, it's just the total balance, 5% goes to the surviving spouse.
Yes.
Well, now both of them are aligned investment-wise.
Yeah.
Because both of them want growth.
Yeah.
Because it makes the 5% bigger.
That's right.
Right? So it's thinking about in the planning, how can I, put my shoes in future beneficiaries? What are going to be their interests? And not trying to create a conflict there. Because Grant, I have sat in the courtroom when the stepchildren are suing the stepmom, who is also a trustee, and saying you're investing poorly, you're making bad distributions, you're not treating all the beneficiaries fair.
Yeah.
That is a very difficult case on both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
That is extended litigation and very complicated.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that you can think through on the planning side for an irrevocable trust. And just trying to align the interests.
Yeah.
And then let's say you're in a scenario that wasn't thought through. You're already on the side of it, and you have beneficiaries, and you have a surviving spouse, and their step, and you're concerned.
Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps instead of letting this play out and having a future lawsuit, perhaps early on you say, hey, we realize the potential for conflict, and to preserve the family relationship, because we want everybody to like each other, let's go to court and maybe convert this into a different type of trust. Maybe we'll convert this into a unit trust or some sort of annuity amount or something like that. Now, there might be tax implications on that, all sorts of things. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's an option on the table to say, hey, after the fact, after the first death, can we do some sort of redesign so that this family can still see each other on Christmas and Thanksgiving and still talk to each other.
Right. Yeah. It's very tough. And, while you were talking, it just came to mind, there are times where in those scenarios, the beneficiaries, they come to me. Well, you're not investing this right, or you're not doing this. I have a responsibility to the trustee. That's the only person that has legal power to make decisions on the trust. I can't do anything. I can't give him communications. I can't tell him balances. I can't tell him trades. So it's tough for even me when there's that disconnect within the family, when there's not that level of communication, when we do have blended families, because I, just like you, I have a legal obligation, and I can only go to the line. I can't go past that. And if the trustee says do it this way, where in your scenario, I need income. I'm going to generate extra income. I know you guys want growth, but I don't care. Well, they're not happy. They're reaching out to me, which happened. And I said, look, there's nothing I can do. Yeah. She is the trustee. I have to go by what she says. So it does. It can make for a very complicated scenario all the way around. Yeah. And so there's some simple things that could be done. And when we look at that specific scenario I was talking about, the irrevocable trust, there are options after that is said and done. Now, again, to be fair, I don't actually know how the trust was set up, whether it was truly revocable or whether she did have that special provision of where she could make changes. I'm not exactly sure what happened. But if someone's in that scenario, or if they're facing someone that is in that scenario, there are options. It's not always all set in stone. Yeah. And family changes, life changes, dynamic changes, goal changes, even risk that people want to take changes. So there's always something that could be done. And so a good way to avoid this is having proper planning in the beginning.
Proper plan and letting your advisors, letting the attorney know, this is our family dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so sometimes I see people be hesitant to share because they don't want to share the family drama. Attorney-client privilege, right? It's not getting out the door. If I'm talking to the client, whatever our conversation is, attorney-client privilege, it's not going to go out the door. Yeah. And so please let me know what the family dynamics are, what concerns there are. Are there in-laws that are a potential concern? Maybe everybody gets along, but there's potential in-laws who are difficult.
Which is that's a very big thing.
Yeah. And so I need to know that to be able to have make good suggestions. Because maybe in a blended family, maybe they have been together so long that those children really are treated as equal children. Sure. But sometimes not. And so it's being honest with the planners to design the plan, And then also thinking, well, we all get along right now, but then also thinking, okay, but in the future, am I creating a temptation for my surviving spouse to change this plan?
Sure.
And it is common to have someone come in and they're doing a trust administration after the first death. And the second question I get is, can I change this thing?
Can I change it? Yeah.
Can I completely disinherit some people?
Yeah.
Because they've been a little difficult.
Yeah.
And if I'm on that side, it's like, yeah.
You can.
Sometimes you can, right? But if you have some irrevocable structures, maybe not. So,
Perfect. Well, John, thank you for the input and thank you for the advice. This has been another episode of Planning in Practice. Again, we've been graced with John Hannon here. So, John, if there are people watching this video that have questions or they need an estate planning attorney, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure, yeah. So my name is John Hannon, estate planning, trust administration, tax law practice. And if you want to reach out to me, I have a law firm that I'm with, Murtaugh Law, that's in Irvine. You can also reach out to Grant. He'll connect you to me.
I'd be happy to. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll speak soon.